In this lesson, we're going to come back to trigonometry and start talking about triangles again. So far we've worked with right angle triangles. And when we have a right angle triangle, that means a 90-degree angle in the triangle. That means that we have two tools that we can use. Can you think of the two tools? Well, one of them is the Pythagorean theorem. That's just a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the hypotenuse. The second tool that we can use is SOHCAHTOA, or the primary trig ratios. The Pythagorean theorem only helps us with side lengths, and SOHCAHTOA will help us with side lengths and angles. So what if we have a triangle that's not right angles? So take a look at this guy right here. There's no indication that any of these are right angles, so that means we cannot use the Pythagorean theorem. And it also means we cannot use SOHCAHTOA. So we need another tool, and that tool is called the sine law. The sine law can be used with any triangle. That's right, the sine law is going to work with non-right angle triangles like this guy. It's also going to work for right angle triangles. However, if we do have a right angle triangle, these guys will be faster. But when we don't have a right angle, we are stuck with the sine law. So what's really important is how to use the sine law. Well, if you take a look at the sine law, it's made up of three fractions, 1, 2, 3. And in each of these fractions, there's small case letters and uppercase letters. We see a little c and a big C, a little b and a big B, a little a and a big A. So those correspond to the side and angles of a triangle. So we are not going to label our sides opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent, because this is not a right angle triangle. We're going to use uppercase and lowercase letters, and we'll use A, B, and C to start. So what's really important is that we make the angles the uppercase letter. So if we choose this one to be A, we can make this one B and then this one C. So the first thing we do is we label our angles. So the angles have to be uppercase letters. You can put the angles wherever you like. If you instead wanted to have A here and C here and B here, that's perfectly fine. What matters is your side lengths. So if I chose that this guy is going to be angle A, then the one across from it has to be side A, and we use a lowercase letter to represent the sides. So let's try again for B. If this guy is our angle B, then across from angle B will be side B, and side B is a lowercase letter. Again for C, if this is our angle C, then across from angle C is our side C, and side C is a lowercase letter. So that's how we label a triangle for sine law. So now let's practice. So this question gives us a triangle. We can see that there's no right angles in it. We can find this missing angle because all the angles inside of a triangle add to 180, and none of them are right angles. So we cannot use SOHCAHTOA. And this question asks us to find the length of P. So we're looking for this side length right over here. So because we know it's not a right angle triangle and have to use the sine law, let's label this triangle using A, B, and C. So we can choose any of our angles to be uppercase A, B, or C. Why don't we choose this guy to be our angle A, just so that we all have it labeled in the same way. So we'll put a nice angle A here. Why don't we call this guy up here angle B, and let's call this guy angle C. It doesn't matter where you put your angles, because the most important thing is where is its corresponding side. So across from angle A has to be side A. So I'm going to put a little lowercase a on this length. Remember, angles are uppercase and sides are lowercase. Then I'm going to go across from B, and this is going to be our side B. So I'm going to put a little b right here. And then I'm going to go across from angle C, and this is going to be our side C. So I'm going to put a little c right here. So first step, just like SOHCAHTOA, is to label. The second step is to write out the sine law. So I'm going to copy right from up here. I'm just going to copy it down on my paper. So pause the video if you need to and take a second to copy it down. As you're copying it down, make sure that we have the side length over sine of the angle. We're not going to take sine or cos or tan of a side length. We always take it of an angle. So we have our side lengths on top and then sine of the corresponding angle underneath. So once you have that copied, our third step is to fill it in. So our first step is to label our triangle. Second step, write out sine law. Third step, fill it in. So little a, do we have side length A? We don't. So I'm just going to rewrite it as A because we don't have that one. All over sine of angle A. Do we have angle A? Yes, it's 32. So I'm going to write sine of 32 equals, how about little b? Little b is 21. So side length B is 21. So we're going to put 21 all over sine of angle B. Angle B is 95. So we're going to put a 95 here. Now for the last ratio, we have side C, so little c. Little c we don't have, so we could just leave a little c, or we can use the letter that was given, which is P. So why don't I use the letter that was given, which is P, because that's what we're looking for, all over sine of angle C. Do we have angle C? No, but can we find it? Yes, because we have two angles in a triangle, and what do all angles in a triangle have to add to? They have to add to 180 degrees. So I can find angle C by taking 180 and subtracting 32 and subtracting 95. And that is going to equal 53 degrees. So I'm going to put the 53 right here. So this is actually 53 degrees. And now we can put it back into our equation. So we do have angle C. It is 53 degrees. So let's recap. The first step with sine law is labeling our triangles with A's and B's. Done. The second step is to write out sine law and fill in what you have. And then our third step, we have three fractions here, or three ratios. We need to choose two of them. And the two that we choose are really important. One of them has to be a completed ratio, and the other one has to have the thing we're looking for. So what is it that this question was asking for? It was asking for the length P. So we're looking for this side length here. Which of these ratios uses the side length P? 1, 2, or 3? Clearly, it's the third one, so I'm going to circle that guy as one of the ratios that we're going to use because that has the thing we're looking for. The other ratio we use has to be complete. So see this ratio? We have the angle, but we don't have the side length. That is not complete. But take a look at this ratio. This ratio has a completed side length and angle, so that one's a completed ratio. So the two we choose, one has to be complete, one has to have the thing that we're looking for. Once we have that, we are ready to rewrite them. So we're going to rewrite these two ratios beside each other. So I'm going to put 21 over sine 95 is equal to P over sine 53. And now we're just going to solve this equation. So we are looking to get P by itself. So I have to get rid of a divided by sine 53. That is just a number that our calculator will calculate as we learned with trig ratios. So how do you get rid of a divided by sine 53? Well, if you're thinking you have to multiply by sine 53, you're right. So I'm going to multiply, that's a dot. My pen isn't doing a good job with it. There we go. We're going to multiply by sine 53 on this side, and we're going to multiply by sine 53 on this side as well. What's going to cancel out are the sine 53s. And on the left, we're going to have P. Sorry, on the right, we're going to have P. And on the left side, we have this big calculation to put in our calculator. So those of you who feel comfortable, you're going to put sine 53 times 21 divided by sine 95. I'm going to show you how it looks like on a calculator. So here is how it looks like in a calculator. Side note, make sure that your calculator is in degrees. You can see that my calculator right now is actually in radians, so I'm going to go ahead and switch that. Now we're in degrees. I'm going to put in sine 53, so sine 53, and then I'm going to make sure the bracket is closed, and I'm going to times by 21, and then divide by sine 95, and press equals, and there's our answer. It's 16.8, we'll round it to 8.4. So there's our final answer, and that's how we use sine law to find a side. I'm going to repeat the steps one more time. We're going to try one more example. So first thing that we did was we labeled our triangle A, B, and C. Then we wrote out sine law, we filled it in. And then with our three ratios, we just chose two of them. One of the ratios had to have the thing we were looking for. In this case, it was side P. And the other one had to be complete. This one we couldn't use because we didn't have side A, so it was not complete. Once we've chosen our two, we write them down together, and then we just solve for the missing side. We took a look on the calculator, figure out how to type all of this in the calculator, and here's our final answer. Let's work on our second and final example now. Now that we know how to find a side length using sine law, can we figure out how to use an angle? Well, the steps are going to be the same. The first step is to label our triangle. I can't use SOHCAHTOA here because I don't have a 90 degree. So I'm going to use A, B, and C to label this triangle so that we can use the sine law. So remember, the angles don't matter, it's what the side lengths are. So which side do you want to make A? How about we make this guy A? How about we make this guy B and this guy C? So most important now is what our angles are going to be. So this guy right here, our side lengths are going to be, if this is angle A, then this 60 degrees has to be side A. So we're going to put a little a like this. And then our side B has to be across from our angle B. So we're going to put a little b like this. And then our side C has to be across from our angle C. We're going to put a little c like this. Next step is to write out the sine law. Once you've used the sine law so many times, you'll be able to skip this step. Pause the video anytime I've gone too fast. When you're ready to go, let's start filling in what we know. Side A, do we have it? Yes, we do. It's 60, and we don't know the angle A. Instead of angle A, I can write X to remind me that that's the thing that I'm looking for. So we have, instead of little a, we have 60. I'm not going to put in the units. And then I'm going to put sine of angle X equals our side B. Do we know what side B is? Yes, it is 100. So I'm going to put in 100 all over sine of angle B. We know angle B is 125, so I'm going to write sine of 125 is equal to side C. Do we have side C? No. And there's no way to find it without using the sine law, so I'm just going to put a C. Do I have angle C? Last time we were able to find our missing angle. Can we find it in this case? The answer is no, because we're missing two angles here. So we know that all three of them have to add to 180, but we don't know two angles, so we also don't know angle C. So our third step, after we've labeled, step 1, step 2, write out sine law and fill it in. Our third step is to choose two ratios. One ratio has to have the thing we're looking for. What are we looking for in this case? It asks us to find angle X. So I'm going to circle angle X. Here we go. The ratio with angle X, and that's going to be this first guy. The second ratio we have to pick is the one that's complete. This one, we don't have a side or an angle, so it definitely can't be this one. This ratio right here has a completed side and a completed angle, so we are going to choose that as our second ratio. Our last and final step is to rewrite these guys underneath and solve it. So we're going to put 60 all over sine X, so there's our first ratio, is equal to 100 all over sine of 125. And now what to do here? Well, I'm looking for angle X. One problem is that it's at the bottom of our fraction. This happened to us when we were using SOHCAHTOA as well. Sometimes the thing we were looking for is at the bottom of the fraction. So what tool did we use in SOHCAHTOA to get the thing at the bottom up into the top? And the tool that we use was cross multiplication. So let's try cross multiplication. If you used a different tool, feel free to do it. If you like to flip both fractions, go for it. So we're going to use cross multiplication here. So I'm going to cross and multiply. So on this side, we're going to have sine 125 times 60. So that's what I'm going to write. I'm going to write sine 125. And then I'm going to put in brackets times 60. So that it's clear I'm not just multiplying the 125 times 60. I'm multiplying sine of 125 times 60. On this side, I'm going to multiply sine x times 100. So I'm going to put sine x and then times 100. Sine x and then times 100. So our whole goal is to get x by itself. What can I get rid of on this side to get x by itself? Before I can get rid of that sine by using sine inverse, I got to get rid of the 100. So how do you get rid of times 100? Well, you're going to divide by 100. So I'm going to divide by 100 on this side and also on the left side. And then my sine, or my 100 times 100, 100 divided by 100 will cancel out. And we're left with all of this right here. So we've got sine 125, all in brackets, times 60, all over 100. And that is going to equal sine of angle x. So we are almost done. X is almost by itself. So what can we do to get rid of this sine now? Got to get x by itself. We already talked about it already. So if you heard me say sine inverse, you are right. Again, we're trying to get x by itself. We got to get rid of this sine function. So we're going to apply the sine inverse to both sides. So here's what it's going to look like. It's going to look like sine inverse right here. So we're going to put sine inverse. And then I'm going to put all of the left side in there. So I'm going to put sine of 125. I'm going to keep that guy in brackets. I'm going to times it by 60 and divide it by 100. And that's all in these brackets of sine inverse. We're going to take the sine inverse of all of that, and that's going to equal our x. So again, what did we do? We had to get x by itself, so we have to take the sine inverse of whatever's on this side. So we copied whatever was down there, we're finding the sine inverse of it. And now we've got to put it in our calculator. So here is how it can look if you're using your calculator. Make sure that your calculator is in degrees, so I just changed mine into degrees. And sometimes it's easier if you have so many things that we're taking the sine inverse of. It's going to be easier if we actually at first, let me see if I can move this. At first, let's just put in the calculator what's inside the brackets. And then as a second step, I'm going to find the sine inverse. It's not the only way to do it. If you feel really comfortable with your calculator and you don't have to do that, that's awesome. But I'm going to first calculate what's inside the bracket. So what's inside the brackets, we're going to start with sine of 125. So here's sine of 125. I'm going to make sure to close the bracket. And then I'm going to times it by 60 and divide by 100. Once it looks right, then we are going to press the equal sign. So this is not the answer. Remember, we still have to take the sine inverse of this. So the next step is to press sine inverse. For me, I have to press a button before I hit sine inverse, and you're going to see that it's going to pop up. There we go. So arc sine, that's how my calculator is showing it. Yours will show it as sine inverse. Arc sine and sine inverse are exactly the same. So now we have to tell the calculator what we want to find the sine inverse of. And we want to find the sine inverse of the number we just wrote. So to tell the calculator, I want you to calculate it using the number you just calculated. We're going to click this answer button. Every scientific calculator has an answer button. There we go. I had to change something. There we are. So what I'm telling my calculator is I want you to find the sine inverse of the last answer that we just had. You can actually see it on my Google calculator. That was my last answer. So make sure your screen looks like mine. Yours will say sine inverse and then the answer button. And when you're ready, press equals. You know that you have the answer right if you get this as your number, 29.44. If you've got that on the calculator, you are done. If you had trouble, re-watch the video at that part and retry it on your calculator one more time. So let's summarize what we figured out in this lesson. We found out how to use the sine law to find side lengths and to find angles. When we were finding side lengths and angles, we followed the same 3 steps. First step was to label our triangle. Second step was to write out the sine law and fill in what we know. And the third step was to pick 2 ratios, one that was complete and one that had the thing we're looking for, and solve it. When we're looking for a side length, the thing that we're looking for is on the top of the fraction. So it's really simple for us to solve. When we are looking for an angle, what we found is the thing that we're looking for is at the bottom of a fraction. So we use cross multiplication to get the angle as by itself as we could, and then we use the sine inverse in the last step. A reminder for the calculator that to calculate whatever's inside that sine inverse button or that sine inverse bracket first, that might help you calculate it more accurately, and then find the sine inverse of it.